Hey there viewer, Rextoon here, and thanks for tuning in. Today I'm going to be reviewing Dreamworks Animation's most milk classic, Shrek. Now this movie was the start of Dreamworks' long line of CG animated movies, because before that they made Disney-esque movies in terms of style, you know, like El Dorado and Prince of Egypt. Now some CG movies that they made are amazing. Some were good, and some were abysmal. Shrek was one of the good ones. Originally based off of William Steve's somewhat short children's book, Shrek is a perfect example of how comedy between DreamWorks and Disney differs. Because, you know, some people don't know the difference or don't give enough of a shit. Because while movies like Toy Story, Monsters, Inc., and Finding Nemo may have some modern culture references, like pop culture, they all take place in modern times and tend to stay away from more adult jokes. Shrek is the complete opposite. Taking place in medieval fantasy world, making reference to things like parfaits and silly animatronics seems a bit ridiculous. This movie does it extremely well, knowing when to ease up from the pop culture references and knowing when to just lay them hard and make it funny. Alright, now let's start with characters. For the first Shrek movie, it didn't really branch out on all those side characters that are used a lot in the sequels. So there's only really 4 big characters that we really need to talk about. Those are Shrek, Donkey, Princess Fiona, and Lord Farquaad. Shrek is a character somewhat similar to Wario in his own game series, you know, like Wario World and stuff, where he's kind of like, oh yeah, he's an asshole, but there are people much worse. He's an enjoyably bitter character that can show soft emotions, like around the lovey-dovey scenes, which is actually really hard to pull off for some characters. And Mike Myers actually does a really well performance with the skill of doing British accents. Yes, Britain isn't just England, it's Scotland and stuff too. Like Fat Bastard. Donkey, in terms of pretty much everything besides appearance, is basically just Eddie Murphy as an animal. But you know, that's not necessarily a bad thing. It worked in Mulan. Donkey's obnoxious, talkative, and loud, but you know what? Somehow it's tolerable. Mainly because you can tell that he's not being annoying just to be annoying. Eddie Murphy really gets what the writers want from the character, and you can tell that he enjoys playing the role. He's sort of like Ed from Ed, Edd and Eddy, where you say, oh, he's obnoxious and stupid, but so lovable, how can you not enjoy every minute of it? Princess Fiona is one of the right ways to do a damsel in distress. Yeah, she can be whiny and annoying at times, but god damn, she can kick ass! Maybe it's because the voice actor was one of the Charlie's Angels. Okay, that was stupid. Let's moving on. And she's also a way to show you don't have to be beautiful to be happy in life. You just have to be happy. Where were you on that, Disney? Okay, I'm getting a little too, like, not serious here. I'm starting to sound like friggin' silly. Let's keep going. And finally, there's the movie's main antagonist, Lord Farquaad, who in my opinion has to be the least enjoyable main character in this movie. Which is weird, because the villain is usually my favorite character in animated movies. Don't get me wrong, he's still an okay comedy villain. Like the running gag about how short he is kind of funny. But besides that, he's a bit boring here, and all he wants to do is be king. Maybe it's just because he's a silly comedy villain, but I never really enjoyed him very much. Now onto story. Since the original book was like a 30-something page kid's book, there was a lot of room for originality to fill up about an hour and a half. And this movie is very well done in terms of originality. And you may disagree with me when it comes to all the characters from the classic stories like the Brothers Grimm stories, but if Disney didn't adapt those characters would pretty much be royalty-free by now. You know, like Dracula or Sherlock Holmes. When I was younger, I actually thought DreamWorks was jabbing at Disney by adding those characters and having them do non-Disney things. But anyways, the story of Shrek is a very original adaptation from the simple children's book. It makes it pretty much its own movie. Very nice action scenes and jokes that mostly kept me watching, but the climax is, I'm just gonna say it, it's boring. It's really boring. As for music, I don't really have much to say, since this movie isn't a musical, because it's DreamWorks. But I have noticed with the whole movie series, like all 4 movies, that whenever they cover a song, it's way better than the original. Now on animation. When it comes to animation, Shrek was pretty well done, especially for its time, 2001. The atmospheres were very detailed, the character designs were enjoyable, and the action scenes were animated very well, along with all the lighting and scenery and all of that. On the whole, Shrek is a very original and well done animated film. Fun characters, a good story, and a nice look to it. It isn't DreamWorks' best, because there are certainly better, but it's certainly high up there. And if you haven't seen it yet, I highly recommend you see it.
I can't breathe. I like that boulder. That is a nice boulder.